What's going on, everybody? Gunnar here with Mr. Brad Bohen and Brandy. She's our assistant today. And we're going to teach you guys how to do a proper transition into a figure 8 river fishing for muskies. Check it out. So if you want to walk me through it, I'll show you guys what I have been doing, which is more or less going to be less effective and more inefficient. And it's going to draw the fish's attention to me as the angler and also the boat, and get them also looking up into the sun away from the fly. So this is what I have been doing. Been casting out here. We're working kind of a deep hole section downstream of a rapids. And I'm going two hand. And as it's about 10 feet out, I'm going to do a transition to one hand. Keep it high, keep it high, keep it high, and then I start that deep kind of elliptical figure 8 or oval section. And the problem is right here, if a fish is following, where's his head? It's up at us, me, the angler, and the boat. And so Brad's here sharing some words of wisdom.
Start thinking about the end game as soon as you get in the water, all right? And set yourself up with your right angle. About halfway back, get the tip as deep as you can. And I mean deep. Sink it as deep as you can. That way, the fly is down 3 to 4 feet if possible, or even more at the boat. Bring it in, and then you bring it high. From deep, it's like a deep to high transition, and you can sink it back down. But what happens then is you get the fish at the boat looking straight ahead at the fly rather than looking up at you.
So we're going deep, 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 plunge that rod, and now I can do a smooth transition into the 8. All the attention is down under the boat, on the fly. Just absolutely killer. Now in the river, do you figure 8 every cast, or is it more of a visual thing? Because it's obviously fairly shallow. Most of the time it would be fairly obvious to get a reaction.
In the, you know, so...
And maybe contrast that with the flowage fishing or stillwater fishing.
Oh, stillwater, yeah. So like when you, I always say, like, if you can see all the structure, like in lower water conditions, bright sun, you know, if you're coming across a big long piece of gravel and there's nothing there, don't worry about figure 8ing so much, you know, just get the next cast out there. But you get a rain, the river goes up, you know, some stain comes in. When you can't see what's behind your fly or what's down below, or, you know, more so like 4 feet behind it, 4 feet down, when that is a question mark, always figure 8, always. And not so much figure 8, but make a depth
profile,
show them the
speed,
profile,
something.
change the speed, and it's more like what I do is it's like a tipped over ellipse, and I like to bring the fly in. And most people make the mistake and they get too high at the end of where the fly is coming up at the end of the retrieve when you are back to the boat, and that fish will be tipped up looking at you.
That's what I do.
And that's the most common thing. It's so hard to get people, like
finish low.
Finish
low.
Deep. And always be aware that you have to finish deep. So the way that you set your cast and your retrieve up and all of that, it becomes second nature after a while. But for me,
I got something to work on the rest of the time.
I like to keep it deep. I want a fly 4 or 5 feet down, and almost.
So then you're going high to the outside from the depth by the boat.
Yep, and then you bring them up for the reveal. I always call it the reveal. You know, and then I'm gonna sink it down again.
Yeah.
Speed it up high. Force it down low, and most of the fish that I convert are going to pound it on that when it goes down, or as it comes up at the end of these ellipses, you know. Always move the fly away from you too. Don't make your turns at the boat towards you. Always keep the fish's attention going away, somehow going away, down, up, away from you, because when they look at you, you're busted, and it's like it'll divert their attention away from their primary goal of eating to wondering, and a wandering muskie is not an eating muskie.
I always try to, especially however the fly's coming in, because it sets up based on the current and wherever the ripping is, but that transition as the fly come in, that being the fly, this being my rod tip, that transition is always a smooth one, instead of coming in and trying to do some sort of weird 180 splash attack, like you're going to stab them in the eyeball with your rod tip. But whatever it is, it's always pulling up and away. Whether it comes the other way, it's up and away. That
exactly.
Way smooth profile show with a change of speed or something.
And it takes practice to do that, and again, it's something that you need to, you hit it right on these little weird whippy, these are buses, not sports cars, you know, so it's like, how does a bus turn around? It doesn't whip a shitty, you like to lead them in, you know, you gotta lead them.
He's not doing a 5-point turn down there.
Yeah, so a lot of it is just getting it right. And watch the gear guys. There's some great figure eight boat side stuff on. Like watch what they do. They're always ready to make those moves, but it's smooth. And you can speed it up as you get them more aggressively into it. If it's a fish that's really going to go around a few times, you play with these like.
He's seeing a musky right now in his head.
Yeah.
He's shaking the whole boat like he's fishing right now.
You get in there and. But those are things you play with in your head the whole time when you're there's a lot of practice in musky fishing, so you got to practice those scenarios in your mind, leading the fish into the boat the right way, not making the cast.
And that's something you don't practice when there's a fish behind. That's not when you practice.
900 times when there's not.
I get 500 casts today, and I should bloody well practice every chance I get, because the one time there's a fish there, that's the time it has to be automatic. That's the time you have to have the muscle memory. You have to go into it instinctively. You have to stay calm while you're doing it. You can't be thinking. And if you haven't practiced it, all of those triggers have to happen at the same time instead of you sticking that fish.
That's exactly right. Yep. Those all have to come in automatically, and they got to happen at the right amount of time. The worst thing I can say is like when you say, "Oh, there's one," it's too late. If you got the time to say, "Oh, there's one," you're too late in the game. That fish has already busted you. You're surprised, like, "Oh, there's one." You should be like, "Why isn't there one?" Every cast, if you're not saying, "Why isn't there one there?" on every cast, you're not fishing with enough intensity. But you're right, man. You got to prepare yourself for every encounter at every cast, and every time you come back to the boat, you should be leading it into, like, how am I going to lead it into this eat? How am I going to close the deal at the boat? It's great when they eat 50 feet away, or they eat mid cast on the halfway back.
The current scene or something.
Yeah, but the reality is, like, most of the time you're gonna have to close the deal at the boat. And people say, "Well, I haven't ever had a figure eight fish opportunity." Well, you're not fishing right then. You're bringing the fly back to the surface at the boat. The fish is gonna peel off and have you busted out there. So, and they're getting more attention. They're getting more pressure. So we have to continually hone the game, keep your edge sharp the whole time. And the way you do that is just get better at your own mess. And that's the all-day practice, the 999 times that it doesn't work to the one time that it does work.